a how-to manual of how to recreate the earth. God was giving him a story to connect him to creation and connect him to his forefathers. Which is why in the book of Genesis, right, we talk about it being the patriarchal age. The patriarchal age, God deals with the fathers. Now, a couple things I want to point out really quick. We notice in the book of Genesis, God never gave them any laws. Notice, nowhere we read where God gave them laws. Do this and or don't do that, right? The only thing that, here's a good one to remember, the only thing that existed in Genesis was something called morality. Right? It's called morality. When you heard Christ talking a lot, he used the word immoral a lot. The reason he used it was he was pointing us back to understand that in the beginning, because they ate off the tree, we know the difference from right or wrong. So if you do what's right, you're moral. To do what's wrong is immoral. All right. So that's one of the keys to remember about the book of Genesis. Now, when we understand that, we recognize it's not hard to understand that today we're no longer under the laws of Moses, because we know that there was a time frame that predated it. So therefore, it is okay to have a time frame afterwards. So in the book of Genesis, God dealt with the patriarchs. We're seeing Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and now we're dealing with Joseph. We're almost at the end of the journey of Joseph. We're pretty much right at the end of the journey of Joseph, as they bring this thing to a finality, as Jacob sets up the 12 tribes. And this kind of prepares us for them coming out of, well, going into the book of Exodus and Moses having to get involved. We've already kind of laid the framework for it, right? So in Genesis 48, sometime later, Joseph was told, your father is ill. So he took his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, along with him. When Jacob was told, your son Joseph has come to you, Israel rallied his strength, sat up on the bed. Jacob said to Joseph, God Almighty appeared to me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and there he blessed me and said to me, I'm going to make you fruitful and increase your numbers. I will make you a community of peoples, and I will give this land as an everlasting possession to your descendants after you. So something interesting happens. Jacob is explaining to Joseph his interaction with God. Every father we've seen, when they were on their deathbed, what did they all do? They had to bless somebody. It's now Jacob's opportunity to bless somebody, right? Now, here's what's interesting. Jacob has, 12 sons. We know 2 of them messed up. Remember I told you we'll see that play out later? So we're going to see it play out later when Jacob begins to hand out the blessing. 2 of his sons are going to get skipped over because of something that they did. And he's going to replace them, we're about to learn in a second, with Joseph's sons. So is that the point where Jacob is now about to do what every father before him has had to do? He said, now then, your 2 sons born to you in Egypt before I came to you here will be reckoned as mine. Ephraim and Manasseh will be mine, just as Reuben and Simeon are mine. Okay, interesting. Jacob tells Joseph, the 2 sons you got right now, consider them mine. All right? The Bible, Kevin, I know, right? What's going on? The Bible was big on adoption. Right? We learn later in scripture that when Paul explains to us how we get to God, right, it's through adoptionship. The way God viewed adoption is yours. It's yours. Ain't no different. All right, it's yours. So what Jacob does here is he takes Joseph's 2 sons and he says they're mine. Because they're his, guess what that means he has to do? He has to bless Ephraim and Manasseh. Now, let's think about this for a second. We know they end up with how many tribes? 12. If my math is correct, I went to the best high school in the land. If he got 12 sons already, and he take 2 more sons, how many sons he got now? So if we only end up with 12 tribes, 2 sons going to get left out. So 2 of his sons, we never get to know them as tribes. All right? It's going to point back to something they did. So he tells Joseph, I'm going to take these 2. These 2 will be mine. All right? So he's going to take Ephraim and Manasseh. All right? Story gets good. Now, any children born to you after them will be yours. In the territory they inherit, they will be reckoned under the names of their brothers. As I was returning from Paddan to my sorrow, Rachel died in the land of Canaan while we were still on our way, a little distance from Ephrat. So I buried her beside the road to Ephrat, that is Bethlehem. When Israel saw the sons of Joseph, he asked, who are these? These are the sons God has given me here. Joseph said to his father. Then Israel said, bring them to me so I may bless them. Now Israel's eyes were failing because of old age, and he could hardly see. So Joseph brought his sons close to him, and his father kissed them and embraced them. Now Joseph said, all right, I'm going to take these two boys. Any child you have after that, they'll be yours, right? They'll get your territory. But these two, I'm going to take care. I'm going to take them as my own. So when this happens, Israel said to Joseph, I never expected to see your face again, and now God has allowed me to see your children too. Then Joseph removed them from Israel's knees and bowed down with his face to the ground. Joseph took both of them, Ephraim on his right, toward Israel's left, and Manasseh on his left, towards Israel's right hand, and brought them close to him. So he takes the boys, he brings them in front of his father. Now, we've seen this happen a few times. Which son should get the blessing first, the oldest or the youngest? Oldest. Now, we know that's how it's supposed to go, but we've seen a few times. Did it go that way? Right? So, in this particular scenario, it's about to happen again. But Jacob knew what he was doing. It's interesting. Israel reached out his right hand, put it on Ephraim's head, though he was the younger. And crossing his arms, he put his left hand on Manasseh's head, even though Manasseh was the firstborn. Now, of course, then he blessed Joseph and said, may the God whom my father, I went too far. Yeah. Then he blessed Joseph and said, may the God be before whom my fathers, Abraham, Isaac, walked faithfully, the God of who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angel who has delivered me from all harm. May he bless these boys. May they be called by my name and the names of my father, Abraham and Isaac, and may they increase greatly on the earth. I love how every father brings in the father before them. So he talks about his father, Abraham, and his father, Isaac. He said, who walked faithfully, and the God who has been my shepherd. Interesting language, right? We know in Psalms 23, what does David say? The Lord is my shepherd. What did Jesus teach us in John 10 about being the good shepherd? So we see this shepherd language, right? Now, it's not far-fetched because we know what they specialize in. Dealing with livestock. That's their fortitude. So he says, who's been my shepherd all days of my life. The angels delivered me from all harm. May he bless these boys. May they be called by my name. The names of my father Abraham and Isaac, may they increase greatly upon the earth. When Joseph saw his father placing his right hand on Ephraim's head, he was displeased. So he took hold of his father's hand to move from Ephraim's head to Manasseh's head. So what Joseph was thinking was, wait a minute. He's the youngest. Come on, man. We done messed this thing up so many generations. Can we get it right now, right? Joseph like, nah. Jacob like, nah, I know what I'm doing. Right? So Joseph said to him, no, my father, this one is the firstborn, put your right on his head. But his father refused and said, I know, my son, I know. He too will become a people, and he too will become great. Nevertheless, his younger brother will be greater than he, and his descendants will become a group of nations. He blessed them that day and said, in your name will Israel pronounce this blessing. May God make you like Ephraim and Manasseh. So this is an interesting statement he makes, and we see this play out in scripture. When you continue to read the Old Testament, Ephraim grows to be big, Manasseh grows to be big. So what he says is, I know I put my hand on one than another. He's going to be stronger than them. But the goal is going to be that everybody would say, may I be blessed like God blessed Ephraim and Manasseh. So he points out that there's going to be something special about these two sons. Now, what Jacob is doing, he's setting up what we later begin just to hear his tribes, right? He's setting up how they're going to fall into place. By the time Joshua, they come, they're going to use this to understand who gets what and who goes where. So they're going to keep all this consistent all the way through the Old Testament. Right now, again, they haven't got to being a nation. They're still in infant stage. Then Israel said to Joseph, I'm about to die, but God will be with you and take you back to the land of your fathers. And to you I give one more ridge of land than to your brothers. The ridge I took from the Amorites with my sword and my bow. So he tells Joseph, look, I'm going to give you a little something extra. Now, I don't think nobody's shocked that Joseph is getting anything extra from his dad. I mean, he's always been the favorite, right? Because of his mom. So that makes sense. But then also Joseph kind of, would say Joseph proved his work. You know what I mean? Like, they'd have been dead without Joseph, right? So the fact that Joseph is the reason everybody's living and doing good, I don't really see a problem with him getting extra land because again, Joseph literally brought all them out of Canaan. They would have literally died. So now Jacob has to deal with the rest of his sons. Remember, we got a map problem here. We only really hear about 12 tribes. You talk about the gates when they built the temple. How many gates? 12 gates, right? In heaven, we talk about the 12 tribes, right? Everything to the other two. And how do we lose them? Well, something happened that knocked the other two out, right? Now, some of us can maybe remember, I think I pointed to what was going to happen based off some of the things they did. But now Jacob is going to recount it or recant it back and explain to them what they did as he's talking about these blessings, right? Jacob called for his sons and said, gather around and tell what will happen in the days to come. Listen, sons of Jacob, listen to your father Israel. Here we go. Here go the roll call. Take notes. Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, the first sign of my strength. Anybody remember what Reuben did? Slept one of the concubines. Sometimes look like you get away with stuff because don't nobody say nothing. But then later down the line, bow. So now, Reuben, you're my oldest, the first sign of my strength, excelling in honor, excelling in power. Turbulent as the waters, you will no longer excel. For you went up unto your father's bed, unto my couch, and defiled it. Interesting. So because of that, Reuben, right, is told it's going to be pretty rough for you. He doesn't get the blessing like everybody else get, right? We also end up, right, not really seeing Reuben grow into anything major, but again, it's based off what his father told him. Now, there's one more son he's going to deal with in the same manner. All right, Simeon and Levi brothers. Their swords are weapons of violence. Let me not enter their council, let me not join their assembly, for they have killed men in their anger and hamstring oxen as they please. Cursed be their anger so fierce and their fury so cruel. I will scatter them in Jacob and disperse them in Israel. Now, Levi was saved a little bit. Here's why I say Levi was saved. Levi was saved because Levi eventually became the priest. So in the Old Testament, the Levitical priesthood came after Levi. So Levi kind of got saved. Now, granted, they were always at the mercy of the people. What do you mean by that? If the people decided not to tithe, they had to go work. The people decided to abandon the temple, they had to go work. So they were always at the mercy of the people. They were priests. They were to be in the temple 24/7, not to do anything else, right? So those two brothers, we see what happened to them. Now, Judah, interesting name. Your brothers will praise you. Your hand will be on their neck, will be on the neck of your enemies. Your father's sons will bow down to you. You are a lion's cub, Judah. You return from prey, my son. Like a lion, he crouches and lies down. Like a lioness who dares to rouse him. The scepter will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until he to whom it belongs shall come, and the obedience of the nations shall be his. This is some interesting language that Jacob is using. Anybody know who he's talking about? Jesus. He's Bible. I'm doing the best I can. So way back in Genesis, we are already learning about this Jesus. He doesn't say his name, but we got the rest of the story to explain it to us. We know Jesus comes from the tribe of Judah. What other famous king came from the tribe of Judah? This is an easy one. David. Remember, God made a promise to David and told David, the lineage of king shall not leave his throne. All of them come from the tribe of Judah. So when we see it saying stuff like, your hand will be on the neck of your enemies, your father's sons will bow down to you. Again, every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess. The Lion of Judah, we hear about Jesus, right? It's interesting that he can be a lamb and a lion. Interesting imagery there. You return from the prey, my son, like a lion crosses and lies down, like a lioness who dares around him. The scepter will not depart from Judah. Again, that scepter speaks of kingship. It will not depart from Judah. Our last king is Jesus. Right? No matter who the president is, governor, our king is Jesus, right? That's God's promise that he's forever sitting on the throne. So he says, and until he whom it belongs shall come. The who shall come is Jesus. Remember, he came once for salvation. When we did our Revelation Bible study, we learned he's coming again, right? But when he's coming again, he ain't coming back to have the fuzzy conversation he had the first time. This time he come back, it's wartime. All right. So we have our chance now to make our choice. So we learned very early in Genesis that they're already pointing to this Messiah figure who's going to come from the tribe of Judah. He will tether his donkey to a vine, his coat to the choicest branch. He will wash his garments in wine, his robes in the blood of grapes. His eyes will be darker than wine, his teeth whiter than milk. Y'all remember some of this stuff in the Bible? When Jesus came in, when he came in riding on donkey. All right? Then we learn in Revelation where they say like his robe was clothed, right? It looked like blood, right? It begins to paint the same images. So now, remember, Jacob is saying this way in Genesis. Jesus is nowhere near coming to the earth. But connected to Judah, this is the lineage Judah is going to have. So now we see why they could not die in Canaan. They would have died in Canaan, everything God would have told Jacob would have been a lie. And because scripture teaches us that God is not like man that he should lie, if God says it, right, it has to happen. Which means God has the power to protect his promise. I don't care what your predicament look like. I don't care what your situation look like. Because God cannot lie, he will deliver you to what he spoke to you. This is what we see now when we look at Genesis 49. He's talking about Judah. We got more sons. Zebulun will live by the seashore and become a haven for ships. His border will extend towards Sidon. Issachar is a raw-boned donkey lying down among the sheep pens. When he sees how good is his resting place and how pleasant is his hand, he will bend his shoulder to the burden and submit to forced labor. Some of these things we see these things play out in a lot of these tribes, especially if you start walking through some of the Old Testament, you start walking through Exodus and get into the Kings and the Chronicles and go through some of the prophets, you begin to see some of these tribes fall into all kind of stuff, right? But again, some of this stuff goes back to what Jacob said earlier and then what gets said about them later. Also, he's going to arrest them. Dan will provide justice for his people and some of the tribes of Israel. Dan will be a snake by the roadside, a viper along the path that bites the horse's wheel so that his rider tumbles backwards. I look for your deliverance, Lord. So he begins to point out certain things about Dan, right? That Dan is going to be this troublesome of a figure. When you follow those tribes, you'll begin to see all of these things play out. Why this is important for a good Bible study? When you see some of these tribes fall into some of these positions they fall into, it is a good read to go back and see what Jacob said. Like, you know what? Your daddy said that was going to happen to you. Now, the difference is Jacob is only speaking what God had to have revealed to him. So he's not cursing anybody. He's just letting them know based on what I've received, what I've heard, this is where you're going to end up. All right. Gad will be attacked by a band of raiders, but he will attack them at their heels. Asher's food will be rich. He will provide delicacies fit for a king. Naphtali is a doe set free that bears beautiful fawns. As you continue to read and learn about these tribes, well, what I love to do is in the New Testament, when I hear different people name, I like to go see what tribe they came from. Because then it points me back to realize it all go back to these same families. So when you hear people talk about the nation of Israel, the children of Israel, this is them. This is all that is. Israel's sons are considered the children of Israel. Now, As we continue to learn, you'll also see them get that name, Children of Israel. Right now, they still call them Hebrews, but their name will change here in a little bit. Joseph is a fruitful vine near a spring, whose branches climb over a wall. With bitterness, archers attacked him. They shoot at him with hostility, but his bow remained steady. His strong arm stayed limber because of the hand of the mighty one of Jacob, because of the shepherd, the rock of Israel, because of your father's God who helps you, because of the Almighty who blesses you with blessings of the skies above, blessing of the deep springs below, blessings of the breast and womb. So Joseph becomes a fruitful vine. Now, you never hear the term Josephite, right? Because Joseph is never known for a tribe. Remember, his two sons ended up coming in. So Joseph is never known for a tribe. But this is what Joseph has already done for them. Think about how they treated Joseph. But yet, Joseph made sure everybody ate, made sure everybody was good, right? So we see Joseph mentality played out here. Also, your father's blessings are greater than the blessings of the ancient mountains, than the bounty of the age-old hills. Let all these rest on the heads of Joseph and the brow of the prince among his brothers. Joseph gets this prestige position because Joseph has did something powerful. He was thrown away in essence, right? We almost use the word term thrown away. But through God walking with him, God being with him while he was in slavery, being with him while he was at Potiphar's house, God being with him while he was in prison to interpret the dream, to get on side Pharaoh, to interpret the dream for Pharaoh. And now Egypt has this bountiful blessing. Jacob and everybody's able to come. They're all blessed. Jacob now gets a chance to sit back, look at his son and say, man, look at what you've done. Right? You literally saved the entire family. Literally saved the entire family. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning, he devours the prey. In the evening, he divides the plunder. One of the most, I won't say famous, but a big name person in Bible, or a heavily used name in Bible, came from the tribe of Benjamin, is Paul. You'll hear Paul saying, I'm a Benjamite. What he's saying is he traced his lineage back to this tribe. So when you hear them start saying what tribe they come from, they go back to a son, which gives us what we call the 12 tribes of Israel. All these, here we go, are the 12 tribes of Israel. And this is what their father said to them when he blessed them, giving each the blessing appropriate to them. So again, based on what they did, based on how they carried themselves, right? That was what Jacob explained to him. So this is how we get the 12 tribes of Israel. So when you hear people talk about the 12 tribes of Israel, you know where to go back to. Go back to Jacob's sons. What does the name Israel come from? Jacob's name was changed to Israel. His children therefore considered children of Israel. So all throughout the Old Testament, you hear children of Israel. In the New Testament, you start to hear some of the tribal names, right? When Jesus talks about it, some of the Pharisees and Sadducees talk about it. Because as they grow, each tribe becomes known for something. You didn't talk about Bible unless you was a Levite. They were the priests, right? Ephraim takes a chance at it. You ever read Isaiah 28? He talks about the drunkards at Ephraim. They called themselves trying to teach the word of God, right? And God has to deal with them. So you begin to see all tribes take the identity as you continue to read out through the New Testament. Now, it brings us to an interesting time in the book of Genesis. Book of Genesis is coming to a close. But something interesting is going to happen. Jacob is on his way out. Matter of fact, he's about to die the next few verses. So Jacob dies. Now the leader right now is going to be Joseph. Which is interesting because technically the leader should be the what? Oaths. Right? But God blessed Joseph in such a way that Joseph now will become the leader right after his father dies. Then he gave him these instructions. I'm about to be gathered to my people, bury me and my fathers in the cave in the field of Ephraim, the Hittite, the cave in the field of Machpelah near Mamre in Canaan, which Abraham bought along with the field as a burial place from Ephraim the Hittite. Remember when Abraham got all that money from the spoils of the war? Remember they wanted to give him the land? He said, no, I want you to give me nothing. I want to pay you full price for it. That's the land Jacob is talking about going back to. Full circle. Full circle story. So Jacob's like, hey, bring me back to pretty much what my grandfather brought. There Abraham and his wife Sarah buried. There Isaac and his wife Rebekah were buried. And there I buried Leah. The field and the cave in it were brought from the Hittites. Now, it's interesting. Okay. In life, Jacob hung with Rachel. In death, he's buried with Leah. Interesting. In life, Rachel was the one. But he asked to be brought back. He buried Leah. And while it seemed like, I ain't gonna say seemed, that's a soft word. I don't want to be soft right here. We seen how he treated Leah, right? But he gave her respectable burial. In the Hebrew culture, where you buried was important. It meant something. All right. That was a very important thing on how you treated the dead and how you buried them. So he buried her in a respectable place, and now he's going back to that same place where he asked him to bring him. When Jacob had finished giving instructions to his sons, he drew his feet up in the bed, bread his last, and was gathered to his people. In other words, Jacob has now died, and we get into the last chapter in Genesis. So now we have a scenario. Jacob has died. Now we got to go back to the brothers, because here's something interesting. The brothers have to now figure out, was Joseph being nice to us because our dad was alive? Or did Joseph really change? Right? Guilt will have you thinking all kind of things, but when you know you're wrong, I know ain't none of y'all never been wrong. I'm just saying, like, when you're wrong, you know what I'm saying? Well, that guilt have you thinking everybody know what's going on, right? You be nervous. So you can tell this if we can say that. So now they have to try to figure out, how is Joseph going to deal with us? Joseph said something, 28th verse in this book, that now since we've had a chance to look at his life, see how it played out, I pray that this verse means so much more to you now after hearing it. Joseph threw himself on his father and wept over him and kissed him. Then Joseph directed the physicians in his service to embalm his father Israel. So the physicians embalmed him, taking a full 40 days, for that was the time required for embalming, and the Egyptians mourned for him 70 days. So we hear early on in Egypt, we hear about embalming. They did that because they weren't going to bring him back yet, right? So they have to preserve his body, which is what embalming does. It allows them to preserve his body. When the days of mourning had passed, Joseph said to Pharaoh's court, if I have found favor in your eyes, speak to Pharaoh for me. Tell him my father made me swear an oath and said, I'm about to die. Bury me in the tomb I dug for myself in the land of Canaan. Now let me go up and bury my father, then I will return. So Joseph gets permission from Pharaoh. Can I go bury my father? Now, even though they're Hebrews, you won't see them deal with death ever like this again, but they have to do it like this now because they are visiting Egypt. Even when Jesus died, you never heard about embalming. When Lazarus died, you never heard about embalming. That was not a Hebrew culture. That was an Egyptian culture. So because they're in Egypt, they're doing things the Egyptian way. All right? So now Joseph has to ask, give me permission to leave my post, right? I mean, he's doing such an amazing job. I need to go bury my father. Pharaoh said, get up, go up and bury your father as he made you swear to do. So Joseph went up to bury his father. All Pharaoh's officials accompanied him, the dignitaries of his court and the dignitaries of Egypt, beside all the members of Joseph's household and his brothers and those belonging to his father's household. Only their children and flocks and herd were left in Goshen. Chariots and horsemen also went up with him. It was a very large company. When they reached the threshing floor of Atad near the Jordan, they lamented loud and bitterly. And there Joseph observed a 7-day period of mourning for his father. When the Canaanites who lived there saw the mourning at the threshing floor of Atad, they said, the Egyptians are holding a solemn ceremony of mourning. That is why the place near the Jordan is called Abel Mizraim. Now, they're on their way back. Joseph takes this moment. The number 7 tells us something is complete. So Joseph takes this moment to really just grieve. I don't want to go too heavy, but I got to be honest right here. Sometimes when we experience loss, or I won't say loss, we experience death, sometimes we don't give ourselves enough time to grieve. Sometimes we just get right back up and get right back to it, and you never really set in that emotion, you never really sat and dealt with that. So I love that Joseph took a moment and said, let me sit in this, let me deal with what just happened, let me process this so that I can move forward. Because here's the consequence. If I don't sit and do it in those moments, I carry that for the rest of my life. You'd be surprised how folks have never dealt with a parent or sibling or somebody close to them leaving, and every birthday, every anniversary, every remembrance of it it's like it happens all over again because sometimes we never sit in that emotion. Whatever that thing is, learn to sit in it so that you can process it and move past it. And that's what Joseph decided to do, right? Now, after he does this, Joseph's sons did as he had commanded them. They carried him to the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of Machpelah near Mamre, which Abraham had brought along with the fields as a burial place from Ephraim the Hittite. After burying his father, Joseph returned to Egypt together with his brothers and all the others who had gone with him to bury his father. Check out the brothers. When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, "What if Joseph holds a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrong we did to him?" Guilt, boy. I always say you ever heard this when they say, "Ain't no fun when the rabbit get the gun"? It's a true statement. See, you handled me bad when you had power. Now your fear is, now that I got power, how am I going to handle you? They say what's good for the goose got to be good for the gander, right? The way you treated me. So that's what they're realizing now. And what I love that they did was they brought the daddy back into the conversation. They said, so they sent word to Joseph saying, "Your father left these instructions before he died. This is what you ought to say to Joseph. I ask you to forgive your brothers the sins and the wrongs they committed in treating you so badly. Now please forgive the sins of the servants of the God of your father." When their message came to him, Joseph wept. So the brothers say, "Look, he might not listen to us, but let's bring daddy back into this thing. Look, before daddy died, man, they wanted you to forgive us, bro. So go on, let that go, Joseph. Don't hold it against our head." Joseph said something so very, 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 very powerful, man. That we got to really pay attention to. His brothers then came and threw themselves down before him. "We are your slaves," they said. Watch this. 19 and 20 are so powerful. But Joseph said to them, "Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God?" Verse 20. This is one. If this ain't highlighted in your Bible, I need you to highlight this, put some marks on the side of it, and go to it every now and again when you get mad at people. Because they put you in a situation, you went through something. Don't forget, God is always in control. And this is what this reminds us of. Watch what Joseph says. Joseph says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." One translation say, "What you did for evil, God meant it for my good." Here's the blessing of the story. To accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Before you think God mad at you, that's why you going through what you're going through, he could be using that predicament to put you in position. He could be using that issue to put you in a place because there's a reason you need to be there because there's something you're working to save. If Joseph never is sent into slavery, if he never goes to Potiphar's house, if he never goes to jail, he never ends up in Egypt. If he never ends up in Egypt, they have no way of getting food when the famine comes. And if they have no way of getting food when the famine comes, they all die. So while it looked like in the midst of it, man, they're wrong, we realize God can make any situation work for his good. As long as I got God with me, I don't really care what you do me. That's why scripture said, "Great is he who's in me than he that's in the world." Because if I got God on my side, Romans 8:28, all things work together for the good of them who love the Lord and called according to his purpose. Here's why it's important. How can I walk in God's purpose and God not take care of me? That's not going to make me look bad. That's going to make God look bad. So think about how heavy this is what Joseph said. Y'all intended to harm me. But man, God did this for good. That's powerful. After understanding all Joseph experienced. Can I ask a question? Oh, y'all started putting your head down and saying, "Ask a question." Forgive folks. Forgive them. Let it go. You don't know what they did to me. It don't matter. God carried you through it. There was something you got out of it. There was something God did in the midst of it. Forgive them. Because if I don't forgive them, it's I can't move on. I'm gonna be stuck. Forgiveness is like bricks, and bricks don't help you fly. So as I'm asking God to forgive me, what did Christ say? I have to be willing to forgive them. Too many times we want what we're not willing to give. Girl, don't teach. Even nobody don't say nothing. I will. I promise I will. You have to be willing to give what you expect. Too many times we want love, but we don't want to give love. We want peace, but we don't want to give it. We want grace, but we don't want to give it. We want mercy. I've learned everything I want from God, I give to people. When I need God to open the door for me, I open doors for everybody. Right? Because I need God to do it for me, so let me do it for somebody else. The quickest way to come out of what you in is do for somebody what you need God to do for you. You ain't got no money? Find a way to bless somebody and watch God bless you. You want your house to change? Stop talking about them people's house and pray for them. Watch God fix your house. Go back to me. I know it's Bible study. I don't want to get too excited, but I'm just saying. Joseph shows us something very, very important. They eventually stay in Egypt. They run through this time frame in Egypt. Joseph eventually dies as well. And then when Joseph dies, again, they continue to stay. But something else happens, right? After Joseph dies, there's this new Pharaoh that comes into power, and that walks us into the book of Exodus. Right? Any thoughts, questions on Genesis? Come on, that was a whole book. Yes, sir.
The two sons that is true, I know Reuben was one, but I missed that. Who was the other one? That was
Reuben, you can really take out. So Reuben, you really can take out three of them. Yeah. So Reuben, Simeon,
and Levi.
Well, Levi, they got a break. They become a Levitical priest. So you have the Levites. They become Levitical priests. So Joseph doesn't get a tribe, and Reuben and Simeon doesn't get a tribe. Okay.
Question. I'm thinking of the journey of the Israelites back to Cape. It took them 40 years.
Yep.
How long are these trips to bury Jacob, for the children of Jacob coming to buy grain and going back home and so on? How long does it take?
It's a good question. So his question is, this is good. Remember when they come out of Egypt, right? It takes them 40 years to get back to Canaan. He asks, how long is it? Because we see them go back and forth. It's only like a 4-day journey. But it took them 40 years. Reason why, that generation that Moses got out of Egypt, they just didn't want to listen. So they were so bad that God says none of y'all gonna see the promised land. God let an entire generation die. Ooh. Matter of fact, Moses didn't even see the promised land. Because he listened to the people, wouldn't listen to God. There was some hard head. But they were horrible. They were bad. Moses up there talking to God, getting information. He come back down. They done made a cowardice of God. So it's interesting because as you go through this, man, Pharaoh takes over. So really, really, really good question. And you know, thoughts on Genesis? How we feel about Genesis? Does it make? Yes, sir.
There.
Huh?
Moses.
Well, he couldn't go in. All right, he couldn't go into it. He never stepped foot. Right. Yeah. He seen it, but he couldn't step foot in. He couldn't help them possess. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, Elijah, Jesus. Was that in the promised land?
No.
That wasn't Canaan?
No.
Okay. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. He was on the mount. That's
And they went.
Aaron.
Oh, for the liberation.
Are you talking about Moses? So you're talking about when Moses went up to the mount?
No, he's talking about when Jesus.
When Jesus went up to the mount. Okay. When Jesus went up to the mount, yeah.
No, she talked about in the.
Yeah. You talking New Testament. Okay, New Testament. So when Jesus go up, he takes some of the disciples with him to the Mount Transfiguration. But that wasn't necessarily constituted as Moses being in the promised land. They went in and possessed it in the generation with Joshua. Yep. Good. Any other thoughts? Questions? How we feeling about Genesis? Does it make sense? Yeah. Yeah. Genesis is one of my favorite books. If you I always say, if you can understand Genesis, the rest of the Bible makes sense. It's hard. I believe it's hard to understand the Bible unless you go check out Genesis. Because if you get the beginning, granted, the rest of the Old Testament, we get Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, right? You can see how God builds this thing with them. But then from Joshua to Judges, Samuel, Kings, Chronicles, and the prophets, you can see them kind of go crazy. And then after Malachi, so between Malachi and the Gospels, you get 400 years of silence. They really wild out. So by the time Jesus comes in the Gospels, this is almost like a totally different group of people, right? Because they've now got in bed with Rome. They're running after political power. They're running after, they're trying to chase clout, right? So now Jesus stands in the way. But you see this start back with them coming out of Egypt. But God also told Abraham he's going to get his children out of Egypt. So we see it all come together right there in the book. Yes, sir.
Genesis told us back what's going to happen with Christ.
Okay.
Genesis told
Okay.
us why the Jews still happen. It has already happened.
Oh, it's a good question. Good question. So part of it is misunderstanding Bible. In John 12, Jesus tells them that he has to die. What they say is, we thought the Messiah was supposed to be with us forever. So what they understood from the prophets that when Jesus comes, he will rule the earth then. Not that he would come die and then come back again. So they rejected him as the Messiah. And they also, remember when God told Moses, right, to speak to the rock, and I struck the rock, right? Speak to the rock. Moses struck the rock, right?
Yes.
And God talked about who would get glory. Who's the main person they keep comparing Jesus to when he comes? Moses. Are you greater than Moses? Are you greater than Moses? You're trying to overthrow Moses. So in that moment, instead of God getting glory, all glory went to Moses. So when Jesus comes, they're comparing him to Moses. So most of them reject him because they don't accept him like Moses. And especially when they felt like he was overthrowing the laws of Moses, he really was out the door. Yep. This thing get deep, man. It get deep and it get interesting. But this is how it starts, right? This is how it starts. From here, we're gonna move into I say where's it going. I'm tempted. Two books came to mind. One is my favorite, ultimate favorite. I think somebody asked about Romans a while back. I'm praying about Romans. I'm praying. I shouldn't have moved in the week. I'm praying about Romans. We can do Romans. Man, we gotta put out Romans. Romans get heavy. But I'm on edge. And then somebody asked about Judges. So I'm praying too. So I won't do both. We're gonna do both at some point in time. Judges. Book of Judges. Book of Judges is an interesting book. Anybody familiar with the Book of Judges? Oh, what? Okay, I think that might be the one. That's an interesting book. It's interesting. We could probably teach in two days. Same thing happened every time. We will.
Really got up. It just started throwing all that stuff.
It's the funny thing about the Book of Judges. It's an amazing book. That's what we may end up going. We may go to Judges. I like it. It's the big. You know what? Yeah, we're gonna go to Judges because I want to stay in the Old Testament so we can connect some stuff. So next week I'm gonna touch a little bit of Exodus. I just want to show you how things go crazy, and then how they end up on their own, and then Judges when God begin to put somebody in control. But it's a vicious cycle in Judges that we'll talk about. They get in trouble. They cry out to God. God brings a judge. The judge come, they get peace, things are going good. They get hard headed again, fall back into trouble. They cry to God, God bring them another judge. They do good, they get peace, they get hard headed,
She just charged for performing.